Hello. In this video and the next, we will be discussing various theories of motivation. If I take you back to the big picture diagram that I always go back to so that we put things in perspective, we have already discussed what job performance is, the various facets of it. We have discussed what organizational commitment is. We have also discussed what job satisfaction is. These are the things that we as leaders strive to achieve. These are the outcomes that we want to achieve from our employees. Because ultimately they combined lead to higher team performance and higher organizational performance. Now, we also discussed job satisfaction as a mechanism through which high job performance and high organizational commitment could be achieved. Starting this lecture, we will focus more on the motivational theories, the various motivational mechanisms that come into play, which ultimately enhance job performance. Why is it that some people are highly motivated and others not so much? Why is it that sometimes we are highly motivated, sometimes we are not? What are some of the psychological mechanisms that go in our mind that lead us to be motivated or not? What are some of the things that we can do as individuals so that we can be more motivated in the tasks that we are working on? And even before we try to answer any of these questions, what exactly is motivation? We tend to use the word motivation. We tend to throw it easily, but do we really understand what exactly we mean by motivation? So these are some of the questions that we will try to answer in these series of videos. There are certain things in life that we cannot achieve on our own. We need other people to be able to achieve those goals. I think I have already given this example, the example of a novelist versus a movie maker, right? I can write the next great American novel sitting on my desk and just typing the story away. I can just do that, achieve that goal by myself. But I cannot make a full-length feature film on my own. I need a lot of other people to be able to achieve that goal of making a movie, right? So as a leader, I need to get other people motivated on that task so that they are all working towards the realization of making that movie. So leadership, of course, we have already defined it as the process of influencing others to attain common goals. But another way of paraphrasing that would be leadership is ultimately about trying to get people motivated to work towards some goals. So that's what ultimately leadership is. But what exactly do we mean by motivation? So that's what we will try to answer first. In fact, before you listen me talking about what motivation is, I want you to pause the video and just write your thoughts in a sheet of paper about what you think motivation is. So what is motivation? The way we define it is that it's the set of processes that arouse, direct, and maintain human behavior toward attaining some goal. Of course, it need not be only human behavior because motivation can exist also in animals. We can talk about dogs' motivation, about rats' motivation. In fact, a lot of the studies in psychology on motivation started out with the experiments on animals. But in this context, in context of organizations, in context of organizational leadership, we typically only work with human beings. That's the reason we are talking about human behavior here. But beyond that, what does this definition mean? the processes that arouse, direct, and maintain human behavior toward attaining some goal. The definition itself may not be very clear. So let's analyze the definition by its components. And there are three main components. I have actually highlighted those through these, making these words bold: arouse, direct, and maintain. But let's analyze each one of them. The first one is intensity, referring to the arousal part. So anytime that we are thinking of somebody being motivated, do we imagine a person who is not without energy, lethargic, not wanting to do anything, not wanting to get out of the bed? We don't imagine such a person, right? It's just the opposite rather. The person who is motivated is all energized, ready to, do the work, all excited. So there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of intensity that may be there in the person who is motivated. The extent of that, excitement, the extent of that energy may vary. So somebody may be highly motivated, somebody may be not highly motivated, somebody may be not at all be motivated. So there may be a variance in the extent of that arousal. But nonetheless, anytime that we are talking about motivation, one of the components that we are focusing on is the arousal part. How excited, how energized is the person? The second component that we are talking about is direction. The arousal has to be towards attainment of some goal. So you are excited to work towards achieving some goal. So similar to leadership, motivation is also goal directed, except that in leadership it is the leader trying to influence others to attain some goal, because something that the leader cannot achieve on his or her own. When we are talking about motivation, we are talking about individual motivation. So at an individual level, I will be called as motivated if I have that intensity, if I have that energy. But that's not enough. I also need to have that energy towards working towards some goal. If I'm only energized, but it is not goal directed, that energy is not goal directed, we will not call that motivation. An example would be, say, somebody mixed some stimulant in your drink, maybe and added, what do you have, those 5-hour energy drinks or 6-hour energy drinks? Maybe somebody added 3 or 4 of those bottles in your drink, and you didn't know, and you drank that drink. Now after that, you will be super excited, jittery with excitement. But is it that you are motivated? Well, unless you are working towards some goal, we will not call you motivated. You are just energized. Somebody who has snorted cocaine probably will be super high, super energetic, but we won't necessarily call the person motivated unless the person is working towards something. Okay, so that intensity is, yes, one of the components that needs to be there, but along with that, there needs to be the component of direction. So it has to be goal directed. But that's not enough. We also have to take into account the component of maintenance or persistence. I am super excited today and I'm working towards the goal, let's say, of running a marathon. Okay, and I'm super excited. I go train today, but tomorrow I don't feel like running and I stop training. Now, will I be called a motivated person? Maybe at this instant, yes, I was motivated. But unless the activity persists long enough for the goal to be achieved, then or at least for long enough for we coming closer towards the goal, then we will not call that motivation. It was just momentary excitement, right? So anytime that we are talking about motivation, we are talking about all these three components being present: intensity, direction, and persistence. Often in lay terminology, the persistence component of motivation is not taken into account, but in the scientific study of motivation, we take this persistence component into account as well. So just getting motivated temporarily or momentarily is not something that we think of, that is not something that we call is motivation, at least in the field of organizational leadership. We are talking about motivation when the intensity and direction and the work towards achieving that goal persists for long enough time. Now, how long, that may vary. That may vary from context to context, that may vary from one goal to the other. But there needs to be some amount of persistence present in order for us to call that motivation. Okay. Now you will come across some other terms like employee engagement, for instance, which are seemingly different terms, but they are essentially talking about the same things, that is motivation. How is employee engagement defined? It's the extent to which people are absorbed with, committed to, and enthusiastic about their assigned work tasks. Now, isn't this motivation? Enthusiastic means what? They're energized. So the energized component of motivation is being discussed here. Enthusiastic about what? To achieve what? To complete the assigned task. So the goal directedness aspect is also being discussed in this definition. But what about the persistence part? Well, that comes in this word committed to. So you are committed to the task. You are working on the task until you accomplish it. That's what you have committed yourself to. So the persistence part is also getting emphasized. So you may hear different words being used, but nonetheless, they are ultimately describing the same phenomenon of motivation. And motivation matters because if somebody is enthusiastically or energetically working on things over a prolonged period of time, then the likelihood of that person attaining the goal becomes higher. We have discussed that leadership is a goal-directed activity, right? But even from the perspective of individuals, even from the perspective of employees, goal achievement matters, right? I will be described as a high performer if I achieve the goals that I have set for myself. If I don't achieve those goals, then I'm not a high performer, right? So when you are motivated, when I'm saying the word motivated, I'm saying you have high intensity, high directedness, goal directedness, and high persistence. When all those three components are there, the likelihood of me being able to achieve those performance targets would become higher. Now, here's a question. Performance is something then that we all want, irrespective of whether it's the person or the leader. Now, if you had to make an equation for performance, what would that equation look like? You can pause the video here and try to create a mathematical equation for performance. So what do you think will be the contributors of performance? Pause the video here and come up with an equation, and then you can compare your equation with what I will share in this presentation. So this is the equation for performance. Performance equals motivation times ability times opportunity. So performance is a multiplicative function of motivation, ability, and opportunity. It's a very important equation. If you forget everything else that I taught you this semester, at least don't forget this, because if you have internalized this equation, you can still be pretty effective in terms of getting higher performance from yourself and potentially also from others. Okay, so performance is not the same as motivation. Motivation is one of the contributors of performance. If you are not motivated to work hard, then you will not be able to attain the goals, right? So motivation is an important contributor to performance, but not the only contributor. You also need to have the ability, right? Let's say my goal is to be a world champion in sumo wrestling. That's my goal. And let's say that I'm highly motivated to work on this goal. So I am excited and I am working towards the goal of becoming the next sumo wrestling champion, and I'm persistent. I consistently work for months, for years towards that goal. Now, will I become this sumo wrestling champion? No. Why not? Because I just don't have the physical frame. And even if I put on some weight, it will never be enough to build the size that sumo wrestlers have, right? So along with motivation, one also needs to have the ability. If you don't have the ability and only have motivation, you will not be able to attain the performance goals. I have the goal of, say, getting Nobel Prize in physics. That's my goal, and I work very hard. But imagine my IQ levels, my intelligence is in 40s. Then, howsoever motivated I may be, I will never be able to make the kind of discoveries or inventions that would potentially help me get the Nobel Prize in physics, right? So ability also matters. And finally, opportunity. Opportunity matters as well, right? If you may have the ability and you may be highly motivated as well, but if you don't get the necessary opportunity, you will not be able to achieve the performance that you aspire to achieve. Imagine you were born in some sub-Saharan African country where, let's say that's also a war-torn country, and you grew up in this refugee camp and you are not allowed to move out of the refugee camp, and you grew up in a lot of poverty and violence around you. So there's not much of opportunity around you. You may be a very intelligent, bright individual. You may be highly motivated as well, but the likelihood of you being able to fulfill the dream of becoming a world-renowned scientist would be very minimal, right? Because you also need to get the opportunity. If you don't get the opportunity, then your abilities, your skills won't develop, and you will not also be able to perform to the extent that you want to perform. So all these three components, motivation, ability, and opportunity, matter. And it's a multiplicative equation as well. So if anything is zero, any of these components is zero, then your overall performance is also going to be zero. So you are a person with ability and you are also given the opportunity, but you have no motivation, then obviously you will not achieve the performance goals. Anything else, you are highly motivated and you are also being given the opportunity. Let's say, um, you were born to a rich father and rich parents, and they provide you with all kinds of opportunities, and you are also motivated, but you don't have the ability. Then again, you will not be able to achieve the performance. So performance is performance will be zero, right? Because one of these components becomes zero. Anything becomes zero, the overall performance will be zero. So it's a multiplicative function. So important equation to remember, because it puts everything in perspective. It puts motivation in perspective as well. Okay. Motivation is an important contributor to performance, but that's not the only contributor. Ability and opportunity matters as well. From a leadership perspective, you should also then aim at enhancing people's motivation, but also make sure that people have the necessary abilities, necessary skills on the task that you want them to perform on, and you need to give them the opportunity so that they can work on those projects and perform well. Anyway, that's about the performance equation. Let's move forward. Now, there are a lot of misconceptions that people have about motivation. So here are a key points that I want you to remember on motivation. First, motivation is not a personality trait. Sometimes people use the term motivation as a personality trait, and that's wrong. Motivation is a state. It's not a trait. Yes, there are certain personality traits that influence motivation. Without going into too much of detail here, for example, there is a personality trait of conscientiousness. People who are high on that conscientiousness trait, they tend to be highly motivated. They tend to work hard. So personality trait would be a predictor or would influence motivation. Okay, but motivation and personality traits are different things. Motivation is a state. Am I motivated right now? Am I energized right now? Am I working towards some goal? Am I persisting in my actions? So motivation is a trait. Personality traits do influence motivation, but they are different things. We will talk about personality traits later on. Similarly, motivation and job performance are also not the same things. And this should be clear from the equation that we discussed in the previous slide. Higher motivation can influence job performance, but performance or job performance comes from other factors as well, ability and opportunity. Those factors also contribute to job performance. Motivation is not the only contributor to job performance. So motivation is not the same as job performance. Motivation is a contributor to job performance, one of the contributors. People are motivated by more than just money. So this is something that is true. You should remember that money is not the only motivator, and this is something that we will also discuss in the first theory, the need theories that we will discuss first. But many managers, especially, anytime that they are trying to motivate people, their employees, the first thing that comes to mind is, okay, let's start some incentive scheme. It's the most common approach of managers to motivate their employees. And well, it has some merits, but not everyone is motivated by money. And well, that's a different topic which we will discuss in context of the different theories. But money is not the only motivator, and it has some drawbacks too. Motivation, in other words, is multifaceted. There are many things that contribute to motivation. It's a complex process. That is the reason we have many theories on motivation. Of course, we won't be able to go through all those theories, but we will go through some of the important ones, some of the classic theories. But even in the last couple of decades, there have been some new, exciting theories on motivation that have been proposed and also empirically tested. Unfortunately, we won't be able to go through those theories. That's beyond the scope of this class. But if you are interested, you should actually study more about these theories, and you will gain some insights beyond what you get from this lecture that you are hearing on motivation. So the first set of motivation theories that we will discuss are the need theories. And the most famous of the need theories is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, proposed by Abraham Maslow way back in the 40s, 1940s. He was a professor at Harvard, and he proposed this pyramid hierarchy of needs. At the base are the physiological needs. Okay, so this is the need for air, food, water, drink, shelter, warmth, sex, sleep, and so on and so forth. The physiological needs that we need for our survival. Once those needs are fulfilled, then you start giving importance to your safety needs. So being protected from the weather elements, having sense of security, stability, so that you are and not having to fear for your life. Those are the kind of needs that we are talking about here, safety needs. Once these two needs are fulfilled, you start thinking about getting connected with people. So this is love and belongingness needs. The need to love, the need to be loved, the need for friendships, the need for a loving partner, the need to belong to a group, affiliation needs. And once the love and belongingness needs are fulfilled, then people tend to focus on esteem needs. Esteem needs are the sense of achievement needs, the need to achieve something so that you feel good about yourself, the need to achieve status, to work towards gaining more prestige. So those are things that we talk about in esteem needs. And finally, in this model, we have the self-actualization needs, which are working towards fulfilling one's potential. So the key difference between esteem needs and self-actualization needs is that in self-esteem needs, you are working hard to show it to others that, hey, you have achieved something, right? Or to yourself that, hey, I have achieved this, so that you can feel good about your achievements. But when we are talking about self-actualization, we are talking about trying to fulfill whatever potential that we have. So from a societal standard, you may or may not have achieved the societal standards, but you may be continuously working on refining your art, your work, so that, and that gives you a sense of satisfaction, a sense of deep self-fulfillment. That's what we are referring to as self-actualization need. So esteem needs is very other directed. You tend to achieve things to be seen as successful by others, whereas self-actualization needs is more to do with developing oneself, trying to get better every day. That's what you are interested in. You are not concerned about what others think of your achievement. So that's broadly what we mean by the self-actualization needs. Of course, Maslow writes a full book on self-actualization needs, so you realize I am summarizing it a lot here. In any case, so this is a very old theory. as I said, proposed way back in the 1940s. But it does have some value. There's not as much empirical support in favor of this theory, but it does make a lot of intuitive sense, right? It will be difficult for people to work on, say, achieving big things when their basic needs of food and shelter, safety is not being met. They will be too worried about their safety to work on their promotion, right? Or work on writing the next great novel. So one of the basic arguments or premises of Maslow's theory is that you will function at these higher levels of need only if you have fulfilled the lower levels of need. Now, this is the part where Maslow's hierarchy of needs also falls apart, because we also know from our personal experience that there are times when we deliberately function at higher levels of need, even though our lower levels of need haven't been fulfilled, right? For example, I may be working so hard on a research paper, either because of trying to impress others or because I am so involved, so fulfilled, working on the project, trying to make it better, that I completely lose track of time and I am forgetting even to eat and sleep. So I haven't gotten enough sleep. I haven't even eaten enough, but I am continuing to work on that project. So we may even temporarily not bother about our lower level needs. Even if those needs aren't fulfilled, we can function at higher level needs. So there are certain controversies about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but more than that, there is a lot of, should I say, misinterpretations of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And many people also just think about this 5-need pyramid when they think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow actually revised that model. By the way, before I talk about the revised model, there are others who have elaborated or extended Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Alderfer, for example, talked about existence needs, social needs, and growth needs, but existence needs were nothing but safety and physiological needs. Social needs are nothing but the belongingness needs, and esteem and self-actualization were the growth needs. So in any case, Maslow revised his initial model, which had 5 levels, and his expanded model has 8 different levels. He added 3 more needs. One is cognitive needs, which is the need for knowledge, need to delve deeper into any particular subject, so having curiosity. The other need that he added was aesthetic needs. So this is the need for appreciation of beauty, to seek balance, symmetry. That's the aesthetic needs. And finally, he also talks about transcendence needs. This goes beyond self-actualization. So while the highest level possible before was self-actualization, in his revised model, self-transcendence is actually the highest level at which you can function. So what is the transcendence needs? It's not anymore about fulfilling one's own potential. Rather, it is about helping other people fulfill their full potential. Or in other words, it is helping others in their self-actualization process. In other words, the revised model of Maslow's hierarchy is not just self-focused anymore. It is, in fact, the highest level that one can achieve in Maslow's hierarchy of needs And unfortunately, most people don't even know about Maslow's revised model. Uh, the highest level that is possible is other focused. You are focused on the development of others as opposed to yourself. In any case, there are certain weaknesses with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and one of those weaknesses, and the biggest weakness probably, is that it is described in a way that is not easily testable. When it comes to any theory being able to be tested, they have to be very specific, very precise, and written in terms that can be falsified. And Maslow's hierarchy is very descriptive. So it is not as easily testable, due to which, again, there isn't as much of empirical research that has been done on this theory. But that does not mean that this theory is waste, that it does not have any value. Maslow's hierarchy of needs can give us some great insights about ourselves and about others. Some of the things that come to mind, especially in context of leadership and work performance, is that our needs are changing. They are not fixed. We are not always functioning at the same level of needs, right? When you are poor and your basic needs are not being met, you may be too focused on your safety and your physiological needs. Money may matter a lot to you. But believing that money will always matter to you is foolish. Once you have attained certain level of income and you are relatively secure, just having more money may not give you a deep sense of satisfaction. You may start, because your lower level needs have been fulfilled, now you want your higher level needs to be fulfilled as well. So now you will focus probably more on achievement, or maybe having some sort of connection with friends, with people. Or if, let's say, even those things are achieved, you have achieved your societal goals, you have now prestige. Beyond a certain thing, you may not be motivated to continue to impress the society. You already have everything. So at those points of time, then you will have to look for alternatives, more in terms of trying to fulfill the potential that you have. Even after you have achieved that to a large extent, even then you may not feel a sense of fulfillment, which you finally can only fulfill when you help others in their development, in their growth, right? So the Maslow's hierarchy of needs gives us a sense of direction about what we should aspire for. And organizations, though, they are often not functioning at these higher level needs. They often try to motivate people only through these lower level needs, relatively. I mean, of course, the more they are focused only on money, they are focusing probably more on physiological kind of needs. To a certain extent, even esteem needs, because there is a prestige component also associated with gaining money. But organizations can actually do even better if they start functioning, if they start thinking about helping people operate at these higher needs levels. And you will see that different organizations approach this differently. Some organizations tend to give a lot of importance to sense of team spirit, connectivity. They may have a lot of activities that they do on campus, which would be what? Enhancing or addressing the love and belongingness needs. So different organizations tend to focus on different things. The last thing that I would like to mention here is that we need to, even though it is possible that one can function at a higher level even when one's lower level needs are not fulfilled, but that typically can happen only for a certain amount of time, right? I can go without food. In fact, when I do fasting, I do fasting. The longest that I have done actually is only 4.5 days. But just water fasting for 4.5 days uh, was so not eating, only drinking water for 4.5 days. It's like I'm suppressing my basic need for food in the with the goal of trying to achieve something bigger, right? Trying to fulfill some potential in terms of being able to work on either some higher spiritual goals or higher health goals, right? Excuse me. So it is possible that one can function at higher level needs during that fasting period of 4.5 days. Actually, I was working on my projects, everything, so it's not that I was constantly thinking about food, right? So I was functioning at those higher levels. But the important thing to remember is that yes, it is possible, but that is not something that can be done for extended period of time. There's a limit there. So then the implication here is that sometimes people get their priorities wrong. They think that money doesn't matter. They are only focused on self-actualization needs, which can be, so this is almost like talking about a reverse pyramid kind of situation where you give more importance to these so-called higher order needs and not enough importance to these lower level needs, which would be fine if your lower level needs are already fulfilled. But if those lower level needs are not fulfilled, then you may actually end up creating more difficulties, more problems for yourself and your family, right? So in any case, in terms of motivation, Maslow's hierarchy of needs tells us that we will be motivated to fulfill our needs. So depending on what needs we have at any point of time, what need level we are functioning, that's what we will be motivated to fulfill those needs. So that's the primary premise of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In context of organizations, somebody functioning at a let's say biological needs, or maybe more interested in monetary rewards. Somebody interested in esteem, having functioning at an esteem needs, may be more interested in promotions. So the same reward may not work for everyone, right? Somebody working at love and belongingness needs may find it more rewarding working in some team, some group oriented situation as opposed to working alone. So depending on what level of need or what level you are functioning in, you will value different things. So the same reward may not work equally well for everyone. So there are a lot of implications that come from Maslow's hierarchy of needs as well. There are some psychologists who have studied needs from a personality perspective. So they consider needs like personality traits. In other words, needs can be a variable based on which we can differentiate one person from the other. One of the most well-known of those theories is Murray's manifest needs. He talks about three different needs, the first being need for achievement. This refers to the need to set goals and strive, the need to strive towards the achievement of those goals, the need to seek excellence, the need to achieve those standards of excellence that you may have set for yourself. So that's need for achievement. Then comes the need for affiliation, which is similar to the love and belongingness needs that we have discussed already in context of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And this is the need, of course, to love and be loved, the need to have friends, the need to feel connected with them, the need to be accepted by them, the need to cooperate with people. And finally, we have the need for power. This is the need to control, the need to dominate, the need to control one's environment, the need to influence others. Again, similar to what we have discussed in context of leadership. So the need to achieve positions of power so that you can influence people and influence people to attain some goals. So these are the three needs that Murray talks about. And here the needs are viewed as individual difference variables. In other words, some people generally tend to be higher in need for achievement than others. Similarly, some people may be generally higher on need for affiliation and so for need for power. So here we are not talking about how our need for achievement changes over a period of time. That certainly happens. But when we are talking about needs from a personality perspective, we are talking about different people having different levels of these three needs, which then influences their behavior, their career paths, and what they value. So that's the Murray's manifest needs theory. This also has a lot of implications when it comes to motivation, workplace motivation. People with high need for achievement generally tend to be more motivated on their workplace because they have this high need for achievement. They're driven to achieve their goals. Compared to them, people who are low on the need for achievement. This is something interesting. And this was something that was actually found in later research. Actually, let me go to the next slide. McClelland, David McClelland, he did some excellent research on the need for achievement. And he finds that people who have strong need for achievement, they strive to, they first of all take goals that are neither too hard or too easy. They take moderately difficult goals, and they also work hard to achieve those goals. Okay. People who are low on the need for achievement scale, they tend to pick goals that are either too easy or too hard, or too easy. You get the idea. So we do see some individual differences here. And of course, if you pick a goal that is too difficult or too easy, then you will have difficulty sustaining your motivation. So your persistence component of motivation will be negatively impacted. You may initially be excited about working on such a big goal, but you will not be able to persist on working on that goal because you will, after some time, you will realize it is too difficult. It is something that is beyond your abilities, and you will get demotivated. So that's what happens when you pick goals that are too difficult. But people with low need for achievement often subconsciously end up picking such goals that are either too difficult or too easy. But people with high need for achievement tend to pick moderately difficult goals. That was something interesting that was found, um, initially found in Macmillan's research, but we know this from the later research that has been done on the topic as well. But similar patterns can be seen for, or interesting patterns can be seen for other needs like need for affiliation as well. People with high need for affiliation would not, or rather prefer to work in teams. They tend to be more agreeable. Uh, they may not like to displease others. So we do tend to see some patterns here in the way they behave and what they get excited about. Okay, somebody with high need for affiliation may get excited about or get motivated to work in group contexts, where they have the opportunity to interact and relate with their colleagues whom they consider friends. But they may not be as excited to work on solitary projects, and so on. Somebody with high need for power. This is interesting. There's a lot of research that has been done on need for power, especially need for achievement and need for power. These are the two traits that have been studied, or two needs that have been studied in greater detail. It is often associated with climbing up the hierarchy of organizations. People with high need for power are the ones that tend to seek leadership positions and also tend to achieve those leadership positions. So there are these findings that have been done on these different needs. We won't delve into this topic in greater detail here, but you realize depending on what your dominant need is, you will be motivated about different things. If you have a higher need for achievement, you will be more motivated to work towards accomplishing tasks. If you have a high need for power, you will be more motivated about promotions, about reaching higher positions. If you have higher need for affiliation, you will be motivated to interact with people. So again, similar to the points that I had made before, you cannot use the same approach to motivating people, the same rewards for motivating people, because people have different needs. Now, once you are aware of people's needs, then you can structure your incentives accordingly. So the next theory that we will discuss is the reinforcement theory, but I will discuss it in a separate video. This video is already close to an hour now. So needs help you figure out what you should reward people with, but how should you reward them, and do rewards work, or when do they work, when do they not work? Those are things that we will discuss in the reinforcement theory. So that will be in the next video, but we will stop this video here.